Oh, look at this layout. Okay.
Yeah, new layout. We're in the building. But let's do a quick check-in. How y'all doing? What's happening?
I'm doing it right. I'm still licking my wounds from that Knick game. That was ugly, ladies and gentlemen. Ugly.
It's making me rethink life. I thought we were going to MSG in order to protest, but we didn't end up making it. But I don't know where I'm at, man. I don't know. But we'll figure it out. Hopefully this game tonight will allow us to see some things moving. But I don't want to talk about sports because not everybody here might be
That's all right. That's all right.
So we got a guest this week. We got Dr. Wilson in the building. Dr. Wilson is coming to lend us her expertise in terms of the conversation that we're having today about who should be the next education secretary. So bear with us.
I don't know if I'm gonna be real expert like.
It's all good. Just be yourself.
It's all good. None of us are experts here too. I do know this.
Just be yourself.
I don't know about you, but I feel like we're starting to get outnumbered by the doctors here pretty soon. And
don't do that. I don't present that way. Don't do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna start putting my diplomas in the background again.
Yeah, you see him move so you can see that ELB.
No, I took it down. See, I took it away.
Oh, I thought you
even there anymore.
I thought you leaned so you could. Oh, all right.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yo, I appreciate you doing proactive things to not be bullied. That makes sense.
You see you like, nah.
or maybe he did it because he's been bullied for the last.
Yeah. So, guys, we're gonna be serious when we come back.
All right.
Bam. All right. Seriousness now. Steve, putting it on you. Who should not be the newest ed secretary? If regardless of who gets elected, who should not be?
It should not be the current Secretary of Education. You should not be asked to stay. Hot take. FAFSA was a debacle. I know we're trying to fix it right now, but really, we can't have that type of situation and not have responsibility and accountability taken for it. We have millions of students who were impacted by something that should have been taken care of, should have been handled in a more appropriate way. Students continue to be impacted by it, and so it's time for a change as Secretary of Education.
Yeah. So where y'all at with this? Y'all agree, disagree? What's y'all's thoughts?
Well, I think, for me, one of the things that I agree with Steve here. Secretary Cardona had a tough go at it. Had a couple initiatives that didn't quite work, and it's the kind of thing where accountability is really important in that role if we want the Department of Education to be taken seriously. And so my man's gotta find a new gig. That rollout to the FAFSA was a total mess at the moment. It caused a lot of issues for people that we care about and we're concerned about on a daily basis. So I agree with him.
Yeah. Dr. Wilson, where are you on this?
I mean, maybe Dr. Wilson, you want the job?
Actually, when I was in undergrad, that was one of my goals, to become Secretary of Education. But I don't think they would hire me at this point. I don't think I could be any worse than what we currently have or have had, right? But I don't. Yeah.
Is it a job
Yeah.
you would want though?
Mhm. And I think I would be almost good at it. I would have to have a good cabinet.
Almost is hysterical, by the way. Like, almost.
But I'm serious. I would almost be good at it, right? Like, so what I think most people don't realize is the Department of Education takes care of K-12 and higher ed, but they never get people who have done both. And I have
Yeah.
done both. So that's a good selling point. Okay. So I would be
Yep.
almost good. Right.
Okay.
You on my list now.
Definitely on the list.
Right. FAFSA can't get any worse. Gosh. I don't even know. Like I was telling Ray, I think it's somebody we need somebody who can lead a national vision for all the states and what teaching should be and what education should look like. That's what I think we need. But who am I?
No, I think that's right. And I would say, given your experience, the thing that I always hope that we would take a stronger stance on is the pedagogical responsibility in higher ed, because most faculty members don't have a strong background in pedagogy,
And they
it
shouldn't.
shows.
And let me explain to you why.
Go.
Okay, let's get into it. Yes. I like you, Steve. We go together now. Tell your wife we go together, okay? I'm just playing. I'm sorry. But so pedagogy, and I have studied this extensively. Pedagogy is the art and science of teaching children.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Now, over the last 15 to 20 years, they have expanded that to reach into higher education, which they should not have, because we have andragogy, which is the art and science of teaching adults. Right.
All right.
And once they cross the threshold into college, they are considered adults. In that, we have to teach them and prepare them differently. So are there some aspects of pedagogy, like wraparound services, which I don't even think is pedagogy, it's just the act of being human and caring. Should we do? Yes. And when I talk to professors where I work, I talk to them about how to teach. And I remind them that they are subject matter experts, right? But because I come from K-12, I was taught how to teach. I was taught how to prepare a lesson plan, how to execute the lesson plan, how to teach to the middle of the class, how to give assignments that are both high and low. And then I was taught engagement. So I have to talk to them about how to be more engaging to students who may or may not know how to read this level of content. And what the example I always use is if I were in a physics class, they would probably kick me out because I would be on my phone looking up the words because I don't know, because it's physics and it doesn't rock my boat. But the professor is excited because they learn physics and they love it, but I do not. So what are you doing to make me love your discipline, right? And when I tell it to them like that, they're like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Right. So you have to, because until you do, your students are not going to be engaged, because there's no reason for me to be in a physics class ever. It just means biology is full and I had to take this, right? You crazy.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in here because who I do not want to be as secretary, regardless of who wins, because there's some ideas being floated around in terms of Kamala wanting to put a Republican in her cabinet, right? And so I think that this person should be canceled out. So we're talking Ryan Walters, who's the state superintendent of Oklahoma. He is divisive in his rhetoric. He was able to get the state test changed in Oklahoma, so now it looks like everybody's proficient, when in fact probably 10% of the state is proficient. There's a lot of right-leaning material in terms of what's happening in education in Oklahoma, and so Oklahoma ranks at the bottom 5% of states in terms of education, so he should not be running the United States Education Department.
You
What I
know,
like about-
one of the things that I'm wondering, if I like think like zoom out, like who should be the next Secretary of Education, it's kind of like, what do we want the job to be? Like, what do we want that person to do? And also, what do we want their relationship to be with the president? And like, I think in the last couple of cycles of education secretaries, across both administrations or both sides of the aisle, that person and the department has kind of taken a back seat because they haven't had a really close connection to like have the ear of the president and be able to have influence on the cabinet. And like, if we're just gonna keep like having this kind of be like a for show cabinet position that doesn't really have any teeth and doesn't be able to have a lot of influence, if that's the direction we want, then it kind of doesn't really matter who we put in that role because they're not going to have a lot of influence. And so I think it hasn't been since like Arnie Duncan and Obama and their relationship, or even like Margaret Spellings and like the W administration, like they had really close relationships with the president. So we have to, if we're going to like have a wish list of people, we got to kind of overlay it with that kind of criteria of like, how do we get somebody who's going to be able to like get the ear of whoever the next president is going to be to like actually influence education policy. But that's my 2 cents.
May I ask you something?
Me? Yeah. Yeah.
So, this time the people are criticizing Biden because they don't really have an agenda for K-12. But look at what he stepped into. Did he have time to create an agenda, right? And did he have time to build the relationship with his Secretary of Education and provide leadership in a way that was meaningful, because we had so many other things going on?
Yeah.
Right? Could that be a factor, or am I just in love with Joe Biden?
Well, I mean, both things can be true.
I mean, I think to your point, right? What the secretary, what they stepped into, right, was a Department of Education that had lots of open roles because they weren't filling roles, right? It was an organization in disarray, and so yes, I do think that they stepped into a place where a lot of foundational things that should have been in place were not in place. And what I expect from a Secretary of Education, regardless of their relationship with the president, is to have a vision themselves. And I don't feel like for the last few, right, there hasn't been anyone with a vision for what they want to see. And as you said, not just for K through 12 education, but for higher education in this country as well. When was the last time we had a real serious conversation around the Higher Ed Reauthorization Act? When was the last time we had a real conversation about what we want to see from sort of national curriculum standards? Well, like, we've never had these conversations. We haven't had these conversations in a long time. What we have dealt with is sort of like we've sort of picked at the edges of education policy, right? Important things, don't get me wrong. We've got a double Pell. We've got to get the FAFSA done right? We had to make sure that schools had extra money coming out of the pandemic. Those things were all critical, but we haven't had real dialogue around the foundation of teaching and learning in this country to ensure that we've got pathways for the next generation of worker that we need. And so it has to be somebody with the vision. And look, all of us who are leaders have stepped into places where the foundations we wanted weren't there, but we still had to get things done, right? And so I think both can be true. It can both be true that there was a lot of infrastructure missing, and like, somebody's got to inspire us and galvanize us as a sector, and that just hasn't been there.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think you said anything wrong. You were right.
But one thing, one push out I have in defense of Cardona is, dude, I know when he came in on his platform, one of his platform items was loan forgiveness, and if you look, there is over 1 million people that have received loan forgiveness, and that may not seem like a lot, but it's huge, because this is 1 million people that are think about your life with student loans, for those of us who have them, and then think about what your life would be without those student loans. Like, life would be amazing. It would be game changing in terms of the things that you would now be able to do with your family, for your family, whatever. And so I think that's some that's something that we should give him credit for, because he did make that push. And
yeah, don't get me wrong, but like, you remember that old movie Wildcats from the 80s? Like, Bud Harrelson was in it, and it was a football movie that Bud Harrelson says, I can run and I can throw, I just can't run and throw. And what I mean by this, can we do two things at once? Can we work on both? Don't deal with that and then do something. All of us in our daily lives are asked to do more than one thing at once. So yes, they get credit. I appreciate those million people's lives are forever changed. Yeah. And there are how many students are just in the New York City public schools alone?
Yeah.
3 million?
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed. I agree. There are also some things in terms of eradicating child poverty that this administration has done in order to kind of even the playing fields for children in lower socioeconomic subgroups. So I appreciate that. So I don't want to come down on him, but what I do want to say is he should have never been given that job in the first place. That job should have been for a Black woman. Biden should have stood tall in terms of naming a Black woman, but in this whole thought of trying to be diverse and making good decisions to represent all of America, I could see why he made that decision, but it wasn't the best decision.
Remember when we were talking about this 4.5 years ago, and when he was chosen, we were all like, he wasn't even on the list
at all,
right? Like, I remember that. Like, I distinctly remember that he was not even a person that anybody ever considered. Yeah. So,
actually, I think it was your superintendent at the time that we thought was going to. It was Contreras, right, Sharon?
Mm-hmm. She was on the list
that I thought was going to be. I know you didn't.
Don't you put me out there like that.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't think I said that she wouldn't. I don't think I said that.
Don't be messing up relationships right now.
Hey. Look, Soror, I did not say that. Don't do me. Look, and I done placed this podcast in several groups, and then you do this. That was wrong. That was not me. I thought it was gonna be what's his name? He's in Los Angeles now, but he was in Miami before that. Alberto Cavallo.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was gonna be.
It's gonna be gosh, what's her name? She and Gloria Ladson Billings have written extensively. I cannot think of her name. What is it about me you can't teach? She wrote that book.
Oh.
I don't know, but Google works. Where's your phone?
Google works.
Wait, last time, you know, I can't stand.
I'm just glad this is going to somebody else. It's usually me.
You know what? I can take it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a guest here. I can take it. Right? I can take it because I give as good as I get.
Oh, you certainly do.
All right.
You're not a victim ever.
I think it should be G. G, you should do it. Are you on my list now too, G? I mean,
no. So, but what if former Chancellor Banks? What if they how would that look?
I'm gonna let you handle this, G.
I mean, I think the vetting process will be challenging.
I like that. I understand.
Bro, that is the most PC diss record. Matter of fact, that's the title of the diss record. The vetting process will be challenging.
But it is. But what I will say about maybe not Chancellor Banks, but somebody like Chancellor Banks, who has been responsible for leading a large urban district, like that perspective hasn't been present at the at the secretary level for a while now. I guess 8 years. Arne Duncan was chancellor of Chicago Public Schools, and I think that there's a case to be made that because of the complexity of these systems of these large urban districts and the ways that change can happen, like through that bureaucracy and those policies, and the importance of like a really clear, strong North Star vision about what education can be and where we want to spend our time and energy, given the limitations of the federal government on state education policy. I think there's a case to be made that there's a chancellor or superintendent of a large urban district that might be a good fit, but yeah, I don't know.
Or we could go, or we can bring someone back. What about John King, right? Former Secretary of Ed, head of schools in New York City, now, New York State, now, Chancellor and SUNY. Look at you. Yep. I see you in the background shaking his head. You see him in the background shaking his head? You see him, right? You see him just shaking his head.
Yeah, I mean, he only had like 10 months. He had a short stint.
He didn't have a real swing at it.
Yeah.
Why? Why was it so short?
Because he came at the end of the term after Arnie had moved on, and he came at the end of the Obama years.
Okay, so here's what I'll say.
I do like you as a guest.
Yeah, this is great.
A lot of people in New York right now are facing indictments.
Mm-hmm.
We need to let them be, okay? That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that speaks to the vetting process being challenging.
I just want to say that's why I'm not in consideration. It's because of the vetting process, and I humbly back out.
Right. I too join you in backing out.
I'm pre-cell phone debauchery. I'm good.
I mean, I am too, but they still alive. Right?
People are still alive.
And plus the way these people be coming out of the woodwork nowadays.
Right.
I don't feel good about it.
I don't either. So if you want me to be your assistant or your chief of staff, I got you.
Yeah, like I want to be in the Department of Education, but I want to fly under the radar. Like, I don't mind being in the rooms, but I don't want to be the face.
You want to be the under secretary.
Yeah,
right. Doc, were you talking about Linda Darling Hammond? That's who it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
Or even Geneva Gay.
Okay, talk more about those two and why they would be a good fit.
Yeah.
So they are really the people who started culturally relevant teaching and all the aspects of it. So I think that's why, because they understand good teaching at any level, right? Because they do it every day, all day. They created the template for it. They train K-12 teachers in higher ed. So couldn't they lead a national initiative on what teaching is and what education is? Because that's really what we need right now, right? And we need people who know how to plan. I know this isn't the topic, but if we have one more disaster that these people are not ready for, right? And they say, oh, it hasn't happened in 100 years. So we need to be, all of us, I won't say all of us, but a lot of people in K-12 who lead these schools and who lead these districts have PhDs. And what the PhD is supposed to do is give us supreme planning, right? The ability to solve problems. Yeah. So we're supposed to be thinking about things before they happen. So if a hurricane comes through and our kids are out for a month, what are we doing to sustain them educationally, right? And then once we bring them back, how are we going to support them educationally and all the other things that come with it, with losing the house and, all the things, not having enough food and having to stay with grandmother and all these other people when we initially had our own room. So what are we doing to support our students in their learning throughout all of these tragic events. And we're not
Yeah.
supporting our students that way. So I think those two people or people like them who have already thought about how to be culturally responsive, how to reach learners who are maybe neurodivergent or don't learn in traditional ways, can also map out courses on crisis and things of that nature, because we're very underprepared for that. So that's why I think they might be better prepared to handle the entire Department of Education, because they'll also put people in place who know how to do things. And I don't think that we do that very well, right?
Yeah.
So if it were me, then I would put somebody in place who really understands FAFSA. I would put somebody in place who really understands teaching at the K-12 level, and then somebody who understands how to bridge that teaching at the higher education level. And what does it look like, right? And then what are our initiatives at each level for each group? What does that look like? And I don't think people really strategize around those things.
Yeah, whoever gets that job and approaches it the same way that you laid it out would indeed probably be one of the best education secretaries in the history of having an ed secretary. However, they would get fired because here's why. They would get fired because you just said something about bridging the gap between K-12 and higher ed. They don't want the gap to be bridged between K-12 and higher ed because they want to be able to point the finger at somebody. And so you will always have somebody in higher ed that'll be like, well, they ain't learn shit in K-12. And you will have somebody in K-12 that will also be like, yo, y'all should be able to teach. So even though they didn't learn anything, y'all should still be able to move them along. So you'll always have this force.
But that goes backwards. But that goes backwards all the time. Because listen, I've taught high school, I've taught college, like I've taught in that, right? When I was in college, it was like, yo, the high school teachers didn't teach these students how to write and read. And when I was in high school, yo, these middle school teachers. And then when I talked to middle school teachers, like, yo, these elementary school teachers. And then I talked to elementary school teachers, they, yo, these parents, they don't be doing, like, everybody's pointing their fingers. It's that Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing at each other. They're like, ain't nobody. And I had a friend of mine who said to me the most poignant thing ever. He said, you know, Steve, kids can't read because adults can't get along. And I was like, that's it. That is the story. Kids can't read because adults can't get along.
That's facts.
Well, even in higher ed, a lot of them say, well, it's not my responsibility to teach you. Yes, it is. It is. That's your whole responsibility. But I don't.
That word you said, adult. What's the adult version of pedagogy you just taught me? Because that's it. Teach them how to teach you. That's the one.
Yeah.
If I could tell you how many times I have heard someone say that's not my job.
Yeah,
we'd be rich if we had it like $1 for every time.
When in fact that is your only job.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, I'll say two names for you. Throw them out there. One, if you want someone who knows how to deal with crisis, our good friend Donald Fenoy, Palm Beach, right?
Yeah.
Fenoy for secretary.
Yep.
Yeah. And then one that I'll say slightly tongue in cheek, but slightly serious. What about David Coleman, College Board? I leave that to you, Ray.
You said who?
David Coleman, College Board CEO.
Wow.
Boy, bye.
They sit at the intersection between K through 12 and higher ed, though.
But
that's their job.
But from a business
I wouldn't hire the College Board to walk dogs in Central Park.
Who do you think it's talking about? Who's fixing FAFSA right now? A senior leader from the College Board.
Not the leader you just said.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy Singer is the president of the College Board, took a leave, and is currently fixing FAFSA.
You're doing a whole lot of name dropping this Friday, sir.
Right. I want to talk to you after.
All right.
Yo, so final thoughts, and you probably should have saved that one for your final thought. But final thoughts, G, we'll start with you.
Next secretary has to have been a teacher. That's my thought.
Wow. I like it. All right. Doctor, as the guest, we'll let you go last. Steve, sir?
Next secretary has to say the words, "It is my job."
I like that. I like that. I like that.
Nah.
Gosh, the next secretary has to be strategic in K-12 and in higher ed.
All right. And so if Donald Trump wins, then we will not have an ed secretary. We will have an ed secretary that comes in to dismantle the education department. A couple of people that he's throwing out to be the dismantler in chiefs are Lee Zeldin from out on Long Island, and then also Vivek Ramaswamy are names that are being floated around to dismantle the Department of Education. So
Tiffany Justice
don't
too.
want the education department dismantled. Make sure you vote. And so here we are.
Is that your congressman? Isn't Lee Zeldin your congressman?
I was going. If he had stayed in office, I was going to run against him.
Oh my God! What?
I was going primary him. He was going to be the main part of my existence out here. Primary Lee Zeldin. All right, folks. We'll check you next Friday.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Ooh.